Finals week drained me. I fell asleep at my desk. The lamp burned through my lids. I woke and could not move. My jaw held shut. My chest felt pinned. Air came in shallow pulls. The hall light outside my door clicked on. For seconds, it clicked off. For seconds, on, off. A metronome with a will. The pattern broke. 3 short flashes. 1 long, 3 short. I watched the thin bar of light under the door. It cut across the rug like a pale blade. Sweat ran into my ear. My eyes stung. I could not blink it away. Footsteps moved in the hall. Flat steps with no heel, no roll. Each step matched the blink. The knob turned a little. It did not open. The light froze on the long pulse. Heat pressed through the crack as if the bulb stared at me. A hand slid into the gap. Thin fingers, nails. They tapped on the wood. It felt like a code. I knew Morse code from a class lab. The tap spelled one word: leave. I tried to speak. My teeth did not part. My tongue felt thick. The fingers climbed the door like small white animals. They gripped the knob. The door eased open a finger's width. The light poured in. Face leaned into the space. The skin looked smooth and wrong. Eyes were wet and too large. The mouth did not move. A voice sounded in the room. "You are in my bed." The door shut. The light died. The room turned black. The weight on my chest eased. I rolled off the chair and hit the floor. My clock read 3:17 a.m. I ran into the hall and stood under the light. It hummed like a tired wire. No steps, no marks. No taps. I stayed awake with coffee and a blanket. At 4:12 a.m., the fire alarm went off. We ran outside. Smoke drifted from the roof. The raw set a wire in the hall light had scorched the cover. A black ring circled the glass. She wrote the time on her clipboard. 4:12. I stared at my door from the grass. My knob had a smeared print on it. It looked like oil from a hand. It's not mine. I moved my desk away from the bed. I pushed the bed to the other wall. I told myself it was a dream. That night I slept on purpose. I wanted to test it. I lay on my back and kept the door open, a hand's width. I set my phone to video the gap. I told no one. At 3:13 a.m., I woke in the same frozen state. The light blinked again. It's 3 short, 1 long, 3 short. The steps came with the light. I watched the gap, a shape bent in the hall. It looked at the floor as if it read from it. The fingers pressed through the crack and tapped again. Leave. My chest burned. I held still. The door opened 1 inch. The voice filled the room. You are in my bed. My phone recording caught the light pulses and the taps on wood. The audio showed a pattern that matched Morse code. The frame showed the door move a little. No face, no hand, just the knob twist a notch. The timestamp showed 3:17 a.m. The fire log for the building showed another alarm at 4:12 a.m. Same as before, same hall, same light. A second scorched cover. I moved out a week early. I left a note for the next student. Do not sleep here with the door shut. The note sat on the desk. When I came back for the last box, it had slid to the floor. Smear crossed the page, 4 fingers wide. The AC in my place made a thin whine. It came from the vent near the ceiling. I never cared. That night, I woke in a lock. I could not move. My eyes fixed on the vent above the closet. Air washed cool across my face. The slat stared like a blind. The whine rose and fell in a breath-like beat. 3 counts in, 3 counts out. Then a scrape joined it. Not metal on metal, more like a throat that learned to sing. The sound drew a path in my head. It felt like a rule. I listened and felt it plant a thought. Dust leaked from the vent. It did not float like normal dust. It drifted with a plan. It drew lines in the air and hung over my feet like a thin veil. The veil pressed out into a face. It's not skin, not bone. A mask made of lint and grit. To clean holes for eyes. A mouth shaped with soft edges. The vent song came out of that false mouth. Warm air hit my teeth. I tried to move a finger. Nothing. I tried to swallow. My throat did not care. The mask tilted. It looked past me to the door. The song stopped. The fan cut hard. The room held still. The mask sagged, then pulled tight again. The closet door edged open. The hinges made no sound. The dark inside looked thick and deep. A second vent on the back wall opened like a small black throat. A click broke the quiet. The thermostat went dark. Screen showed nothing. I smelled warm dust. The mask rose toward the ceiling, folded back into particles and slipped through the slats. The closet door opened all the way. Air moved from the back vent in slow waves. The song came back from inside the closet. Same loop. The words were clear now. Do not sleep on your back. My limbs freed. I rolled to my side and hit the floor. The knob turned in my grip. I fell into the hall. I crawled to the kitchen and sat with the lights on. Moist air pushed through the rooms. I waited for morning. The tech came at noon. He pulled the filter and showed me a black sheet. He found feathers caught in the grate outside. A small dead bird had lodged in the intake. He said the motor had seized. He pointed at the sticker on the thermostat, warned against sleeping under a blocked vent. I signed the work order with a shaky hand. I slept on my side the next night. Still at 3 a.m., air brushed my face in a slow rhythm, stared at the closet. The door stood shut. The vent above it looked like any vent. I closed my eyes and kept count. 3 in, 3 out. The count stopped. A gentle touch pressed my forehead. I opened my eyes. No one stood there. Faint oval print cooled my skin. It matched a palm. I taped the closet shut. I taped the vent too. I moved my bed to the other wall. Weeks passed. The AC stayed quiet. One afternoon, I pulled the tape to check for mold. A message spooned into the thin dust behind the grid. The letters were neat and plain. Wet side sleep. I worked nights in a small hospital. We still used pagers, old units with cracked screens. The tone drilled into your head. At 4 a.m., I took a short nap in the family room. I set my phone on my chest and closed my eyes. The couch felt like a raft in a dark pool. I woke and could not move. My eyes locked on the ceiling tile with a brown stain. My chest rose in tight waves. The hall gave one pager chirp. Long pause. One chirp. Long pause. The door stood ajar. A gold strip of light lay across the floor. The chirp moved left to right and stopped at the door. Black clogs stood in the strip. Green scrub pants hung above them. The pager tone sounded inside the room. I saw no device. The clogs took 2 steps in. The person sat near my feet. I followed the outline up past the knee. No badge. A head in odd light. A face took shape. My father's mustache. The thin white scar on his chin from a bike crash. He had died here last year on the 3rd floor. He did not speak. It reached into his pocket and set something on my stomach. It's a small, hard block, cold through my shirt. Pointed at it, then at the ceiling. The pager tone changed. It tapped a count. 12, 3. 12. I thought of room numbers. I saw the 3rd floor in my head. Room 12. My father stood. He placed his hand on my forehead. Warm palm. He leaned close. I smelled his old aftershave. Made a soft throat sound like he was out of practice. Walked out and vanished in the light. My muscles let go. I sat up and grabbed the object. It's not my phone. A black pager with a chipped case. The cracked screen showed 3 numbers. 312. I ran into the hall. The unit clerk held the phone to her ear. A code bell rang down the corridor. She said the number out loud. 312. I ran with the team to the corner. I stopped at the door and braced my hands on my knees. The pager was gone. My palm showed a faint rectangle imprint where I had held it. It faded in seconds. The code ended. The patient lived. Later, the nurse manager said the first page had failed. The landline call went through a beat later. She shook her head and laughed in relief. She said the timing was odd. I smiled and said nothing. On my break, I checked the old equipment bin. Dusty pagers lay in a plastic tub. One had a crack like the one I held. The tag on it had my father's name. He had used it years ago when he volunteered here. A small strip of tape held that tag. The adhesive had dried. I lifted the pager, and the tape fell off on its own. The screen blinked once with a dead blue light. Then it stayed dark. I set it back in the tub. That night, I slept again in the family room. Foolish move. I wanted to know if he would come back. The stain on the ceiling tile looked like a map of a lake. At 3:58 a.m., the door eased open. I smelled his aftershave again. The pager chirped once. I looked at the clock, 2 minutes before 4. The sound did not repeat. A hand pressed my forehead. Cool weight set on my chest. I counted my breaths and found they matched the heart monitor beep from down the hall. The next day, I moved 2 days. I told HR it was for my health. It was not a lie. I moved home for a month to help my dad. The house breathed at night. Dry heat in the vents made the walls knock. The front stairs had 13 steps. My mother used to count them. She sang the count when I was small. 13 up, 13 down. The echo lived in the wood. I fell asleep on the couch near the base of the stairs. The TV glowed with a silent menu. I woke and could not move. The screen shifted to a snowfield. White, gray, white. No sound. Then a foot on the first step. A slow creak. A breath that was not mine. The next step clicked. The climb began. 1, 2, 3. The count rose in a rasp. It sounded like stone dust in a throat. I tried to roll. My shoulder would not lift. Sweat cooled on my chest. 4, 5, 6. A hand came into view at the side of the couch. Long fingers, clean nails, pale skin. The hand pushed under the cushion near my hip. It felt for something. It found my belt and tugged it out a notch. 7, 8, 9. I stared at the staircase. The head slid between the posts. The face turned sideways, so one big eye could look down at me. The pupil spread into the white. The mouth pressed against the rail and dragged across it. Teeth scraped wood. A chalk line marked the path. 10, the climb stopped. The air pressed flat. No breath. No creak. The next number came from the top landing. 11. The head vanished from the posts. 12. No creak from the 13th step. The voice did not say it. The room hummed like a wire in a wall. A weight settled on the back of the couch. The cushion pushed my head forward. Warm breath moved my hair. The voice spoke the last number into my ear. 13. My body broke free. I rolled to the floor and crawled to the door. The TV went black. The staircase stood empty. My belt lay on the rug with a new nick on the buckle. I did not look at the couch cushions for a long time. The next day I found an old tape in a drawer. My mother's hand had labeled it, Steps. I dug out a player and hit start. Her voice filled the room. She counted the stairs for me as a child. Her laugh warmed the air. At the end of the tape, a second voice whispered the last number. It did not sound like her. My stomach went cold. I rewound. The whisper stayed. That night I blocked the stairs with a chair. I slept in my old room. At 2 a.m. the chair scraped across the wood. The count began again. 1, 2, 3. My door handle turned and stopped. The voice paused at 9. A fingernail ticked the other side of the door, then silence, and the rest of the numbers. 10, 11, 12. I held the knob from my side. A gentle press met my hand. The voice put its mouth to the crack near the latch. It breathed in and spoke the last number. 13. The pressure on the knob eased. Feet went down the hall toward the attic pull cord. In the morning I checked the attic hatch. Dust rings marked the floor where feet had stood. A gray toothmark-shaped line cut the hatch edge. I measured the stairs. I counted by touch. I kept thinking I would find 14. I did not. There were only 13. The wood told me that with each groove and each tread. I left 2 days later. My dad asked why. I told him the truth. The count was not ours anymore. I pulled night shift at a coastal lab. We tested water and logged storms. The bunk room sat at the end of the hall. A thin curtain covered the opening. The vent above it pushed wind that made the fabric ripple with a small hiss. On storm weeks, I crashed there for 2 hours at a time. On the 5th night, I lay down with my boots on. I dreamed of a sheet of water that did not break. It rose and held. It leaned but never fell. The dream dropped me. I woke into a trapped body. The curtain hung still. The air felt wet and heavy. The rain outside had quit. The foghorn out on the point called in steady beats. The call rolled through the building like a slow drum. Shape stood on the other side of the curtain, a rain slicker, hood. The outline did not sway. It kept a post-like stance. I tried to ask who was there. No sound came. The foghorn called again. The shape took a step. A gloved hand pressed the fabric. 5 wet fingers spread like a starfish. Water seeped through and darkened the cloth. The hand slid down to the floor. 2 fingers pushed under the hem. They felt the tile in short taps. 232. That was the code we used in our storm log for a rogue swell. A boy had drowned last season. I read the report that morning. The same numbers marked the entry. Fingers curled and hooked the hem. The shape lifted the curtain an inch. It bent low. Face looked at me from the gap near the floor. Water ran from the hood. The skin shone like the inside of a fish. One eye fixed on me. The other eye looked to the side as if it watched a second room. The lips parted. Small crab walked out and fell on the tile. It scuttled to the wall and stopped. The foghorn moaned a long call. The shape straightened. The curtain dropped back into place. A wet footprint spread on the tile, heel to toe. It did not fade. The smell of salt filled the room. I rolled to my side and sat up. My hand shook. I opened the curtain with 2 fingers. The hall was empty.
Ow.
A gust hit the exit door at the far end. I went to the lab and checked the buoy feed. A red alert flashed. The point buoy had gone dark. The time matched the moment the crab hit the floor. I went back to the bunk room. The crab was gone. A thin grit line marked where it had sat. I looked at the wet footprint. It still held its shape. I pressed my own boot next to it. My print looked faint. The other print looked pressed into the tile from below. I tried to sleep the next night in a chair. The curtain moved in a small tug. Heard steps outside the lab door. Pulled the door shut and wedged a chair under the knob. The foghorn kept time. 2, 3, 2. I checked the radio for boat traffic. The channel hissed with static. A voice cut through for one word. Overboard. Then static again. At dawn, the day crew came in. I walked the pier and looked down. A line of crab shells sat on the crossbeams. Each shell was empty and clean. The wind pushed them a little. They tapped wood in a faint beat. 2, 3, 2. My boots left no prints on the wet planks. The water did not want me to leave a mark. I logged the buoy failure. I wrote the time. I did not write the rest. The bunk room stayed empty for a week. On the 8th day, a new tech took a nap there. He woke with salt on his lips and a palm print of wet on his chest. He said the horn had spoken his name. He spelled it for me. It matched a word we use for a near miss. He did not nap there again. I worked nights at the campus library, checked stacks and locked doors. I ate from a vending machine. Near 2 in the morning, I took a short nap in the staff room. I lay on a couch with a blanket from Lost and Found. The air smelled like old paper and dust. I woke and could not move. My hands felt glued to my sides. My jaw would not open. I could move my eyes. I stared at the ceiling tiles. A thud came from the wall by the outside slot. Someone used the book drop. The thud came again, then again. The slot flap snapped like a mouth. We had a counter for returns. We made 1 beep per book. The beep started. 1, pause. 1, pause. 2, pause. 1, pause. I tried to ignore it. The beeps pushed a pattern into my head. They made words. Help me. I told myself it was my brain. I kept still. The beeps kept going. The beeps spelled more words. Lower floor. Now I fixed my eyes on the staff door. The door stood open to a dark hall. Saw nothing move. The slot flap opened on its own. A book edge slid through. Hung there like a tongue. The couch shifted near my feet, as if someone sat. I felt the weight through the cushion. The light in the hall flicked on and off. The returns counter reset itself. It made a long tone that hurt my teeth. The book slid all the way through and dropped to the rug. It landed next to my shoe. I could move a finger. I dragged it along the cushion. I felt the rough fabric bite my skin. I rolled to my side and sat up. My chest hurt. I stood slow and picked up the book. It was a handbook on stacks maintenance. Notes stuck out from the top. The paper had a smear on it like a wet thumb. 3 words sat in neat block print. Do not talk. I checked the slot chute. Cold air pushed through it. I heard movement from the lower floor. not a step sound. More like a hand slide along a rail. Called down. The sound stopped. I grabbed a flashlight and walked to the stairs. The beam cut a cone through the dark. Dust danced in it. The lower floor door stood open. I reached the landing. The light on that level flicked on. It made a weak hum. My breath came back to normal. I felt better with my feet on ground. I shone the light down the main aisle. The study table sat empty. The microfilm station glowed with a screensaver. The air felt cold and wet. A book cart stood near the archives door. It had one book on it, same handbook as the one upstairs. The top edge of the book wore a new cut. I touched it and pulled my finger back. The paper had sliced my skin. A red line rose at once. A drop fell onto the cover and spread in a small flower. The drop sank into the paper as if the page drank it. The intercom clicked. A voice spoke from the ceiling. It used the flat tone of a text reader. Said one word. Down. I turned in a circle and aimed the light at each ceiling speaker. I saw nothing odd. The archives door opened a hand width. Cold air poured out. I took one step. The intercom crackled. The voice repeated the word. Down. I thought of the old freight room. It sat one more flight below archives. We kept broken chairs there. I remembered the stairs to it had no lights, only a rope for a handhold. I told myself no, made for the staff room instead. The intercom hissed. It spoke again. It said my last name. Then it added one more word. Down. I went back to the stairs. I kept the light on the rope. The air felt damp and stale. The smell of iron hung in it. My boots found each step by count. 12 down, then a flat. I reached the freight room door. It stood open. A small window showed black. I put my hand to the frame. It felt wet. I pushed the door with my toe. The light found a shape near the far wall. A book cart lay on its side. The wheels spun a little. On the floor near the cart sat the metal cover for the outside slot chute. It had fallen free. The chute mouth gaped like a square throat. The air moved in and out with tide sound. The intercom did not reach this deep. The room gave no voice. Palm print showed on the concrete near the chute, not from dust, it's from damp. It faced up toward the ceiling. The fingers were long and flat, the thumb set low. The print did not look like mine or anyone I knew. I knelt. The damp soaked my knee. I rose at once. A huff came from the chute. The sound rolled over my shoe. It felt warm. I backed toward the door. The rope by the stairs twitched like a live thing. It pulled tight and then slack. I ran up 2 steps and turned. The flashlight beam slid over the freight room one last time. Face pressed out of the dark near the chute mouth. Not a full face, only the upper half. Eyes opened too wide. The whites shone like paper. The eyes tracked the light. The face leaned back into dark. I reached the staff room and shut the door. I locked it. I sat on the floor with my back to it. The returns counter beeped once. No book dropped. I waited for dawn. My cut had bled through a knit line on my glove. When I took the glove off, I saw ink on my finger. The blood had mixed with black. It had written a short mark on my skin. It looked like a check mark. It pointed down.